My name's Alan Mulholland, and I'm a solo sailor. This is the story of how I built the Wave Rover 650. 3 years ago, I refitted a 40-year-old Contessa 26 and took her on an amazing 7,800 nautical mile ocean voyage. We crossed the Atlantic twice, but a knockdown on the second crossing and COVID-19 put an end to my solo circumnavigation. So now, I'm building a new boat, smaller, lighter, but more suited for a solo circumnavigation. The Wave Rover 650. Ahoy, Rovers! Well, in the last episode, it was pretty exciting. You saw me roll the boat over with a lot of help from good friends. Now, in this episode, I have to re-level the boat. I have to trim back the sides to the actual shear line of the boat. I have to remove the frames, and I have to put some temporary spreaders in to keep the boat in its proper shape until I can put the bulkheads in. But before I can do any of that, I've got to repair the actual Wave Rover womb. The room here, you saw I dismantled it last week in order to get the boat outside to roll it over. Well, now I have to repair that. So as always, it's time to crack on. All right, Rovers, well, it's time to repair the womb because we had to dismantle it in order to get Wave Rover out and roll it over. It works terrifically, but it only works when you have 2 layers of poly set up and it creates an airspace. So that's what I'm repairing right now. So now it's a matter of trimming down the excess ply above the shear. So in this case, I'll just use a Sawzall to correct all that. Go around the whole boat. And then we'll get a really nice feeling for the shape of the shear with the boat right side up. Well, time to crack on with that. Well, I've knocked it down with the Sawzall, and that's just a rough knockdown. Now I'm going to take the power plane to it and bring it down to where I want. Now you'll notice that I'm wearing hearing protection, as I always do, but I'm also wearing a respirator, and the reason for that is you're creating fine dust, and this fine dust has both fiberglass and it has epoxy, and once that's turned into a fine dust and you breathe it in, it just won't do you any good whatsoever. So that you've got to take precautions when you're dealing with this stuff. Generally, this stuff is all pretty safe as long as you just follow the rules. Anyway, now, time to crack on. Okay, so the boat is nice and fair now all along the shear line, with the exception of where the frames are attached and a little distance before or after them. I have to leave the frames attached for two reasons. One is that they keep the boat from coming in, so they keep the boat spread out, and I'll have to put some temporary spreaders in place, and then I can remove the frames. But the second reason we want to keep the frames exactly where they are is because I can stick a level on that 1x4 right there, and then I can jack up the stern or the bow, whatever is needed to get the boat level, because it's attached to those stringers that are on the frames, and they were leveled to the water line. So the second reason is we can just stick a level athwartships on any of those spreaders, and that will tell us if the boat needs to be adjusted athwartships. Anyway, leveling the boat is the next step. Time to crack on. So I'm inside Wave Rover right now, and I've got a level running across the 1x4, and it's telling me that the stern needs to rise up. And so I have 3/4 inch piece of wood, and well, you know, that's pretty much perfect. It can probably come forward just a... There we go. It's nice and level. So that's telling me that we need to raise, well, this is a 4-foot level, and every 4 feet we need to raise 3/4 of an inch. So the boat is approximately 20 feet long, so 5 times 4 is 20, so 5 times 3/4 of an inch would be 3 3/4 inches. So we either need to raise the transom 3 3/4 inches or drop the bow 3 3/4 inches. The reality is I'll probably do a little bit of both, and I'll have to do that with a jack. I'll just keep this level where it is, and I'll be able to look in and check on the bubble. Okay, so now we're going to jack this up. Let's see. You don't need to do it very much. Just need to get that. So now what I'm doing is I'm moving this forward until we have about 2-inch clearance. Okay, so that's about 2 inches, and I'll just make sure it's running perpendicular. Now we'll let down the boat. So at this point we've lowered the bow about 2 inches, and we're, well, more than halfway to level. So we're going to raise the stern now. So we are almost there. We just need maybe just another half turn. Okay, we're there. This is probably as level as a little boat this size is ever going to be. Let's just try it athwartships. Okay, we're looking very, very good, both fore and aft and athwartships. So we'll just lock it down here. So the last thing I want to do with these frames before I dismantle them is to make sure I get that center line marked. And I'll get that done on all of them so that I'll be able to transfer a center line straight down the center of Wave Rover after I pull these frames. So now that the boat has been leveled and the center lines have been transferred, the next thing I want to do is get some spreaders across here so I can start taking the temporary frames out. And I'm just going to use a 2x4 on some of these longer spans. I'm going to pre-drill it. You don't really need to, other than I just want to make sure I don't split this pine. That's the only reason. That's it. You really don't need to drive that all the way in. It just needs a little bit of resistance just to keep the hull from closing in. All right, on to the next one. Well, now that the spreaders are installed, I can start taking those temporary frames out. Okay, so we have everything prepped. We have our center line on, we have the stretchers on. Now it's safe to remove this. We've leveled the boat. So I'll start getting these guys out of here. Delicate because they do have to get reused. fantastic. It's huge. Huge. So I would be right now more or less in the cabin. The galley would be right here. The nav table right here. The bunks would be starting more or less right here. And they'll be going back under the cockpit. And the mast will be somewhere up here. Storage forward, storage after the mast. There's a lot of space here. Anyway, time to crack on with the next step, which is to remove these, fair out the rest of the edge, and then we'll see exactly what the shear looks like. Crack on. Well, until the boat gets its bulkheads installed, you can see how fragile or how much movement that there is in the hull. Hence the reason the rollover cage was absolutely necessary when we turned the boat over. Well, this week it's an honor to add 4 new names to our Benefactors bulkhead. Nemo Offshore Racing, Stephen Marinelli, W. Ian Finley, Christopher Meng. So what is a benefactor? Well, these folks have made a contribution of $100 US or more to the project, and their names will be affixed to a bulkhead inside Wave Rover and will be traveling with me on our circumnavigation. Now, these donations truly are much appreciated. Well, I hope you enjoyed this episode. In the next episode, we're entering a new phase of the project as I start working on the inside of Wave Rover. But first, there are a number of things I have to do to my limited workspace to make all that possible. Well, Mr. Speckles and I would like to welcome our 2 newest patrons, Ron Canizares and Scott Crow. Now, if you'd like to know more about Wave Rover's patron page and Benefactors bulkhead, I have links to both those pages in the video description. Now, another way to help Wave Rover, and it doesn't cost you a dime, is by sharing our content on your social media. So now, as always, Rovers, thanks for watching. Give us one more. Brilliant.